You ever walk into a $1 million house and the first thing that greets you is another door? Or a narrow hallway with an awkward sharp turn? Bad layout doesn't care how much you spent. It kills flow, ruins first impressions, and makes the whole place feel off. Designing an addition or building a new place means making dozens of decisions, and every single one has to work together for the space to actually work. In this video, I'm guiding you through 10 home layout pitfalls that most beginners avoid, and somehow still fall into. Stick around. I'll save you the trouble before your space becomes a very expensive mistake. Skipping space planning. You wouldn't build a car without a blueprint. So why are you laying out a room blind? One of the biggest beginner mistakes is skipping space planning. That means no sketch, no model, no real measurements, just winging it. And then they wonder why the sofa blocks the hallway, or the coffee table eats up every step of walking space. Before you even think about furniture, map out your room. As an architect, I always begin with space programming, a process where I list every function, activity, and furniture piece a room needs to support, and make sure there's enough space for each. You can actually do this too. Use free tools like SketchUp or Home By Me, or go old school with pen and grid paper. Get a laser measurer or a reliable tape, and document every size and dimension. You're not just drawing boxes, you're setting up the rules of the space before money gets involved. Record your space down to the inch. Door swings, ceiling heights, outlets, and built-ins. This isn't just a sketch, it's your design's foundation. And speaking of planning, next we're talking about the one thing even pros forget to consider before filling up a space. Designing backwards. When it's a renovation or a pre-built home, most people just accept the layout as is, working around awkward corners, inherited furniture, or leftover clutter. But if you want the space to actually work, you've got to treat it like a blank canvas. Not just make do with whatever's there. Because that's not designing, that's settling. Keep what still serves you, but be ruthless about removing what doesn't. Zoning isn't about trends, it's about how you actually live. Map out areas for rest, work, hosting, whatever fits your rhythm. That way, your space supports your life, not the other way around. And don't forget, your layout should breathe. Leave room to move, see, and live, not just walk sideways around an oversized coffee table. Now, what happens when the first steps into your home are already a mess? Let's talk about entrances next. No defined entry. A home without a proper entrance feels like walking into a conversation mid-sentence. There's no pause, no moment to land, just an abrupt plunge into whatever room happens to be in front of you. That lack of transition makes everything feel more chaotic, no matter how well decorated it is. And without an enclosed foyer or even a basic division, you're exposing the entire inside of your home to whoever's at the door. It's uncomfortable, you're in the middle of lunch or lounging on the couch, and suddenly you're face to face with a delivery guy. No privacy, no buffer. The fix doesn't need to be complicated. Try frosted glass panels, sheer curtains, or open shelving to create separation while still letting light through. You don't need a grand foyer. Even a narrow bench, a rug to anchor the space, or a divider like a low shelf can create that sense of arrival. It's about setting the tone before the rest of the home unfolds. Coming up, let's talk about the biggest thing people sacrifice in the name of more space, and why that trade-off never works. Sacrificing flow. You've seen it. A tiny apartment trying to fit a full dining room, a massive sectional, a work-from-home setup, and maybe even a workout zone. All in one. Open space. Or a house layout where they've forced a powder room under the stairs, squeezed a closet in every hallway, or added walls just to say, look, another room. To which I say, don't do these. When you squeeze too many areas into a limited footprint, the space doesn't feel bigger, it feels cramped. You end up weaving through chairs, dodging sharp corners, and losing all sense of flow. Circulation is how your space breathes. It's what makes a home feel open, easy, and livable. So, before adding another piece of furniture or function, ask yourself, is it worth losing your walking path? Overcomplicating your layout can backfire. And in the next segment, we're looking at what happens when you slice your space into too many zones. Overzoning rooms. Let's circle back to planning. When you skip the groundwork, it's easy to overcompensate by carving out too many zones later on. A reading nook here, a breakfast corner there, a random accent chair that never gets used. Suddenly, what could have been one strong living area is now 5 awkward ones fighting for attention. Too much zoning chops up your space visually and physically. It disrupts flow, shrinks sightlines, and can make even a large room feel cluttered. You don't need to label every corner. Sometimes, letting a space breathe is the smartest layout mover. Focus on 1 or 2 core functions, and let the rest of the room support them. If you think a few angles or unique walls will help define your zones, hold that thought. Because next, we need to talk about shape and storage. Wasted corners and storage. In an effort to break the box, some people introduce diagonal walls, odd curves, or funky room shapes, thinking it'll make the layout more dynamic. But here's the problem. The more angular your space, the harder it becomes to furnish. Every kink in the wall steals usable real estate and eats into potential storage. Built-ins become a nightmare. Shelves never quite align. And you end up with dead zones, spots where nothing fits or feels right. And here's something most beginners miss. Storage spaces are not meant to be crammed into leftover corners. Where do you keep the broom, the sweeper, the ironing table? In the corner of your bedroom, or stuffed into an already chaotic bathroom. And you're wondering why you're overwhelmed. These are the things storage is built for, small but necessary. Design with them in mind from the start, not as an afterthought. So we've covered geometry and hidden utility, but what about privacy? Let's talk about the one mistake you'll notice the second someone opens your front door. Overlooked privacy. Ever opened your front door and instantly exposed your living room, kitchen, and maybe even the bathroom down the hall? That's not just awkward, it's bad design. Sightlines matter. Without clear zones or intentional visual breaks, your home becomes a fishbowl. And sure, open layouts are trendy, but that doesn't mean your guests need to see everything the moment they step in. Especially in apartments or smaller homes, a little spatial modesty goes a long way. Design isn't just about how a space looks, it's how it feels to live in it. A well-placed wall, a partition, even just a curtain or frosted glass panel can give you privacy without killing natural light. Imagine being able to answer the door without revealing your entire world behind you. That's a good layout. Okay, tell me this. Have you ever had an embarrassing moment because of poor layout or bad sightlines? Maybe someone walked in and got a full view of your laundry pile. Or worse, drop it in the comments. We've all been there, and honestly, it's part of the learning curve. We've talked about what not to show. Next, let's talk about what you're not seeing enough of. One-sided windows. Here's the thing. Good homes breathe. And that only happens when your layout invites light and air from more than just one direction. A common mistake? Stacking all your windows on a single side of the house. It looks fine on paper, until your living room feels like a cave by 3 p.m., and not a single breeze makes it past the curtains. Without cross-ventilation, rooms get stuffy fast, and you end up relying too much on artificial cooling. If you're designing from scratch, study your site. Where does the sun rise and set? Where do the winds come from? Natural ventilation happens when windows or openings are placed on opposite or adjacent walls, so air can actually flow through. And if you're working with what you've got, try glass doors or louvered panels to passively circulate air. Light and airflow aren't optional. They're part of what makes a home feel livable. Peek ahead, because we're about to talk about focal points and why your layout might be ignoring the most important one. Losing the focal point. Ever walk into a living room where the TV's crammed in the corner, but a lonely armchair gets prime real estate? Or worse, the layout is symmetrical, but the couch faces nothing but a blank wall. That's what happens when function doesn't dictate the focal point. Every space needs a reason to gather, whether it's a fireplace, a view, a statement shelf, or yes, even the TV. Pick your anchor, then design around it. A good layout guides the eye and your movement. That means open sightlines and natural walking paths, not furniture you have to shimmy around. Start by asking, what is this space for? Be honest about how you live. Don't build a formal dining room if dinner usually happens on the couch. Layout should enhance function, not fight it. And speaking of function, wait till you see how rethinking your furniture setup can unlock more options than you think. Forgetting flexibility. One of the easiest traps to fall into, designing a room for one specific function and never leaving space for it to evolve. A second bedroom becomes a graveyard for gym equipment. A dining area is barely used, but you keep it intact just in case. The truth is, life changes, and your layout should be able to change with it. This is where multifunctional furniture and proper scaling come in. A sleeper sofa in the guest room. A fold-down desk in a hallway nook. A dining bench that doubles as storage. None of this means sacrificing style. It just means your space works harder. Look at your space and ask, how else can this room serve me? If it's not pulling its weight, it's time to rethink the layout. Good design isn't about more stuff. It's about making better decisions from the ground up. Designing rooms is one thing, designing how you move through them. Watch this next video to know more.